Who is this Parzival, and how the hell is he winning?
Find him. This isn't just a game. I'm talking about actual life and death stuff.
The oasis, the world's most important economic resource.
Yeah, you're damn right it is. Not as important as this show, though. Hello, you beautiful citizens of the internet. It's time for Cordkillers, our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so you can watch the stuff you love on what you want, where you want, on whatever damn device you choose. I'm Brian Brushwood. Joining me live in studio is our producer, Bryce Neshcom Castillo.
Hello.
And that's it. That's all there is
That's
here in
got.
studio.
This is who is always on Cordkillers.
I mean, you know, we're the, as I like to call it, the Bryce Brian, the B team.
Yeah.
You got the B team.
That's what the CK stands for, the B team.
The CK stands for the B team, except for when we bring in your friend of mine, Mulango AE, joining us all the way. You're in the Northeast. Are you in New York? Is that right?
No, I'm in the great city of Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, still very, very northeasty. We're going to do our very best to hold a seance, and we're going to try to resurrect Tom Merritt, who apparently thinks so little of the show that just when the opportunity to go see a movie comes up, he decides to go see a movie.
Like he should know that there are movie screenings every day,
all the time, right?
They
like,
put him
why
in the
would you just?
newspaper.
Yeah, I mean, it must be some kind of movie for him to have to bail on
I think it's Daddy's
Cordkillers
Home
to go
Free.
see it.
I really do think it's Daddy's Home
Yeah.
Free.
But in the meantime, we're going to do our best to make everything wonderful. That opening bit, of course, was from the first official full-length trailer of Ready Player One.
Right.
Now, as somebody who did not read the book, Bryce, did you feel more satisfied with this than you did with the teaser, or was it still?
I do, because it actually laid out the narrative of like what the stakes are.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. It's kind of a big trailer. Have you seen it yet, Malonga? This new extended trailer?
Yeah, I've seen the extended trailer, and somebody who gets sucked in by movies way too easily because of the trailers, I'm pretty excited.
So that's great. And you had not read the book, right?
No, I didn't. I have the book, though, on Audible. I just haven't read it yet, or listened to it yet.
Oh, dude,
it does a much better job of because when you watch the original trailer, which didn't have any of the story voiceover stuff, you're like, okay, so it's one guy kind of against everybody, but is that all the other users? What's so special? But then it's like, oh, it's like this guy against nations and mega
exactly and that becomes clear, like he's up against a mega corporation that it's like, well, let's just finance an entire team of people to go up against them,
because hey, $500 billion is a lot of coin.
There is one moment that really made me happy, and it was like 4 frames long. Did you both you guys watched the entire trailer, right?
Yeah.
Did either of you guys catch what's her name from Overwatch?
I did.
Tracer?
Yeah, Tracer's in there during the.
I missed that.
Made me very happy.
That was a surprise because she wasn't in the previous trailer or anything.
Correct, and not in the book.
And yeah,
I mean the game hadn't come out when the book came out.
Yeah.
But that just tells me that there's going to be so many Easter eggs, pardon the pun, in the actual movie that's going to be fun for people to find.
That's pretty cool.
Shall we move on to the primary target?
Let's do so.
Ever the good sports Google has pulled YouTube from the Amazon Echo Show again, and also announced that after January 1st, YouTube will no longer work on Fire TV boxes. Google says part of the problem is that Amazon doesn't carry Chromecast and Google Home and doesn't make Prime Video available for Google Cast. This sounds like so much chest-thumping Weiner measuring nonsense. Mulango, like how petty does this feel on a scale of 1 to kangaroo?
Oh, definitely kangaroo. It's like 2 kids in the back seat while you're going on a road trip, and you just want to say, I will turn this car around if you don't shut up right now.
Yes. Well, so like, is that fair game at all? Like, the weird part to me is they're not even pretending that it's not for petty reasons.
Right.
It's
they're
like,
saying because you delisted us and we can't work out a deal.
Right.
But it's also very similar to when networks can't like are negotiating
Yes,
licensing fees.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. That was the first thought I had. Is it reminded me of those times where it's like Time Warner Cable would run an ad on its own network saying like, "You're watching Fox. Guess who's big dumb dummies? Fox. They want more money. Ooh, Fox sucks. Well, if you still want Fox, you better support our cable company."
Right. Or you'd see the scrolls of like, your cable company is going to lose this channel.
Oh, that's right. They used to do that. The constantly running threat on the bottom at all times.
But the only difference between that and what's going on here is that you can watch YouTube almost anywhere. So it's kind of like just hurting yourself for no reason.
What makes it super weird is that it sounded like it used to be that on the Echo Show, you used to be able to go to tv.youtube.com, which is basically the same thing as all the apps. It's just the browser version of that user interface. And apparently this new turnoff is disabling that as well, which is like you are going out of your way to deny people access to your free video website.
Yeah.
Google.
And by the way, like, not to get too political here, but it's like everybody, as upset as everybody's getting about net neutrality, like this is the more practical boots on the ground way of getting screwed that you're going to have is companies piecemealing stuff and deciding to use their influence to restrict what environment you're able to see based on the device that you have.
But is it much different than any other walled ecosystem? Like iTunes, you can't watch iTunes on Android, and that would be great, but it's also Apple's service.
That is true, but that's also, again, like on a very...
I'm not saying that's good, but I think they have that right.
Yes, and this is the libertarian in me says all of them have the right to make really dumb decisions that I'm going to hate as a consumer. That is among their rights.
Sure.
But rarely do we see it so out on Front Street like we're seeing it right now.
But then again, Apple TV's got backlisted on Amazon, and as we'll talk about in a little bit, Amazon is now on the Apple TV and back on iOS and tvOS integration. I think that's just a matter of time before.
Do you think this is such a bold, aggressive decision on the part of Google that it makes me think that it either says something about how big or not big Amazon's presence is, or it at least says something about how Google wants to act like Amazon's presence is so insignificant in the hardware market with the Fire TV and the Echo Show. Like, I don't know. Do you feel like this actually is a substantive thing? Do you think that there's some kind of resolution to this? Like, give me a positive and a negative way this could shake out, Mulango.
I don't really see, like, I kind of feel like this will just go away. Like, much like everything else that seems to happen in this ecosystem, I kind of feel like this is a dog with no bark or bite. Like, I think Google's
it's just so much noise they're making right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that feels right.
It's gonna come back, right? I mean that you're gonna be able to watch YouTube on an Amazon device.
Sure.
You
mean, you better.
Yeah.
That's going to be a dark time, man.
But like, even look at YouTube on the Apple TV. It's still running what is basically a converted version of the old Apple TV with the metal remote YouTube app. It's still there. It still runs. It still works mostly fine. But YouTube's not going out of their way to update it or make it look good or work the same way it works on official platforms. Like, I think YouTube will say, hey, you get to have a bad version of YouTube eventually.
You get a bad version of YouTube, and you get a bad version of YouTube. Everybody does. Meanwhile, YouTube updated its Xbox app with 4K support, but no HDR. Have you guys played around enough with HDR? I've seen HDR displays, and they look good, but I don't know that I could, just being shown a picture, identify, yes, that's definitely HDR or not HDR.
Not personally.
And I do.
What I have seen, so there is a feature that Giant Bomb did about a month or so ago, and they recently got a 4K TV with HDR. And the way that they stream, they can't stream out 4K or HDR, but they had a camera set up that was like locked down on exposure and stuff. And the long story is,
to give a side by side.
to try to replicate what you could see with the human eye.
Sure,
and there's a demo on the Xbox One called, I think it's called Bugs or Insects or something, and it's just a tech demo, but it has a little click button, and when you click it, you can turn on and off the HDR dynamic range.
Right.
And seeing that, you can see that's when you can see that there is a noticeable difference in color range between the two options. Whether that's still something you would see normally versus like SD to HD,
right?
You know, I don't exactly know, but that seemed like a really cool tech demo where it very immediately put the changes right in front of you directly. Click a button, it's on. Click a button, it's off.
So I'm assuming none of us here are using Xbox to watch YouTube videos in 4K. And we're all mainly desktop kind of guys. But do you think there's something about the way Microsoft is managing its relationship with Google that pleases Google in a way that that Amazon doesn't? I mean, I assume. I mean, because Amazon or because Microsoft has competing hardware and they have competing software environments.
But remember when the PS3 came out and Netflix was having its initial boom, right?
Right.
The PS3 was one of the most popular pieces of hardware that people were watching Netflix on.
Right.
And I think that, you know, these consoles that are on their own something attractive to people are already hooked up to people's TVs, already do a lot of the same things Roku's and Apple TVs do. And so I think these consoles are probably not much different than a Roku, than an Apple TV, than a Fire Stick, you know, that you're getting a pretty significant amount of people who use it primarily. I mean, more than half the time I use my PlayStation to watch stuff on the TV rather than the Apple TV even.
So I just noticed something about the summary that Tom wrote in the doc. Rest in peace, Tom. We always loved you. He noticed that on the Amazon Echo story, Google has pulled YouTube from the Amazon Echo, which I imagine is a total market of 12 people. And it says
the
again,
Echo Show,
and has the Amazon Echo Show, yeah. Right. And again, has also announced after January 1st they're gonna no longer work on Fire TV, which to me this is a totally different environment. This definitely makes it sound like that bluff and bluster we were talking about during cable licensing fees negotiations. The fact that they're not really suffering anything because nobody's watching on the Amazon Echo Show. And then the other one is just a threat of what will happen in the future.
I wonder also how much of this is related to the Amazon and Kindle OS ecosystem being a fork of Android, being basically run on Android, but maybe there's a development layer that Amazon
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Like hypothetically, there's a world where Amazon has given a little stipend to YouTube to make YouTube work on a device where the other Google Play apps don't work. And this is Google saying, hey, why don't you keep giving us some money to support this, you know, one of our media channels. So
right now on an Amazon Fire TV, when you launch the YouTube app, you get a message that says, starting on 1/1/2018, the YouTube app will not be available on this device. You can continue to enjoy your favorite creators and videos many other ways. Please visit link for a list of devices you can use.
Yeah.
Oof.
Android TV streaming devices is what's listed here on this support page. Which is
Android TV streaming devices, you know, like the Amazon Fire TV.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
right. Oh man.
All right. Well, I guess the takeaway is that Google is not playing fair.
It's weird.
Or Amazon's not playing fair. Or someone is.
Someone's not happy with the other person.
Someone's not up to snuff. But you know what is up to snuff is your support of this fabulous show at patreon.com/Cordkillers. You guys are keeping us loud, live, and independent. There's 1,510 of you beautiful people, and you changed our lives, man. And we know we'll talk about this later on, but Patreon's going through a bit of growing pains, doing some nutty stuff right now. We'll talk about all of that later on, but just know that every single one of you guys contributing makes all the difference in the world to us. We can't thank you enough. Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Yeah. How about we go into how to watch, guys?
Yeah, if you insist.
I do insist. It's the next segment.
Amazon Prime's videos. Amazon Prime videos Apple TV app is now out in the Canada, UK, and several regions in Europe. I assume, never mind. Prime subscribers can sign into their accounts to watch Amazon Prime exclusive TV series and a collection of movies. The app can play Amazon's 4K video and hooks into Apple TV's recommendations app. Users can also use Apple TV's Siri remote to search for Amazon content from inside the app. Wait a minute. I thought we just decided that Amazon was a big bunch of pouty faces taking their balls home.
Well, and part of this is also the iOS app got updated to support universal search. So when you would normally use a Siri remote to find something, that same searching database is now on your phone.
And Mulango, do you have the Apple TV, the new Apple TV?
I do not, but every Christmas I'm like, I think I'm going to do it this year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's pretty nice. Yeah. Have you ever gotten a chance to use it yet?
No, not the most recent one. You're the only ambassador from that world right now. You haven't had the chance to actually try this with the Amazon content yet?
I haven't, because I don't watch a lot of Amazon stuff, and that's why I think maybe you should borrow mine or something, because I
actually
just don't
might
watch...
not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
I can give you my Amazon Fire TV so you can not watch YouTube.
I cannot watch YouTube on it.
You could describe how not YouTube friendly it was.
Yeah. But this is cool, and it works with the tvOS TV app. So the Watch Now and the Continue Watching stuff also works.
I'll tell you what, man. This is, and we've talked about this for a long time. I love the interfaces on the Apple devices. I'm just too entrenched in the Amazon ecosystem. It's now my go-to default place because I want all of my content that I purchase to be in the same place at the same time. But if it can have the attractiveness of the Apple TV space, but
the only thing is, it's still the Amazon Prime app sort of idea, where it's like you can add something to your watch list, or if you find something you like, you can put it on your watch list, but you can't. I don't believe you can buy it still through either of these apps
natively, because nobody wants to pay 30% to Apple for all of that stuff.
Right.
Which I've gotten a little bit more comfortable with over the last half decade. It's not great.
You watch a lot on desktop though, so that's not an issue ever.
I'll tell you where I run into it is stuff like Audible, because I very much want to impulse buy books on Audible, but I always have to leave the app. I have to go to the browser and buy through that.
Same with Comixology.
Yes.
Every time
that one drove me nuts. You get to the end of the comic, you're like, I gotta know what happens next. You're like, well, leave
add
here,
it to your buy list.
go over there. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So, do you think this is just as close as we're going to get in the future, or do you think there's ever a place where they marry and make it easy for us? We'll go with Mulango first.
I mean, yeah. If your idea of everything everywhere in one place, controlled by one device, it seems like this is Apple getting closer to that. I still understand that the ecosystem thing of having to leave and come back, that is kind of annoying. But I mean, with it being Apple involved, it feels like possibly this could get resolved. I know that 30% is hard to get around, though.
Yeah. I know there was talk either earlier this year or late last year about Apple changing that structure so that it wasn't always 30%, where after you hit certain checkpoints, the fee would go down. And potentially that was what was the Amazon thing was waiting. Maybe they could get a sweetheart deal on that. I don't know if that's gonna change, and I don't know how bad Apple needs that. Right?
That's the question. If they can afford to sit there on 30% mountain, then that's where they're going to want to stay.
Yeah, they definitely will, because the last thing they want to do is capitulate to, any other content distributor.
And I should point out that it's not just the Apple environment. I know there's a number of things that I wanted to watch on using the Amazon app on like the PlayStation 4 downstairs, where it's like, I want all the kids to watch this movie or whatever. Nowadays, the fact that you have a secondary smartphone device in your hands at all times really makes it a lot easier. It's like using an overly complicated remote to say, buy this thing and now make it available.
So you can buy stuff on the PlayStation app.
Yeah, I'm sure you can, but when I hit that roadblock, I'm like,
what's my buying password?
Exactly. And it's that's the old credit card, and it's like, let me just log in on.
What I love about the Amazon PIN, you have to enter your PIN, your buy PIN, whatever. But if you forget it, you can just go to the website and change it without like any check or anything. You're just like, I don't know it. I don't know how you expected me to know it. Just change it to this.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean, hypothetically, though, wouldn't this best benefit Apple to be able to just bypass the 30% for Amazon?
Well, it depends. In the short term, maybe I might say no, both in the long term and in the short term, because the biggest reason for them to stay restrictive the way they are right now is because it's the Wild West. This is the Oklahoma land rush. Still, what are we, 10 years into this experiment, and there's still so much unclaimed territory. And somebody like me, who was very early to adopt into this game, has now bought enough stuff in the Amazon environment that it just doesn't make sense to buy anywhere else. That's where I want to go. So it makes sense as a strategy play for them to continue to be total buttheads about this, with the idea that, getting more people in their clubhouse will only snowball into bigger and bigger market share.
So maybe at a point where the market stabilizes, or user demographics stabilize between the different services, maybe that's when Apple capitulates to be just an extra hint once people have already decided, I already watch a lot of Amazon stuff, but now I can use the Apple hardware and it's the full thing. You're totally vested in Amazon, but then you have the extra hardware play on top.
You know what it feels like to me is it feels like 5 years ago on this program, we were continuing to hear the obvious lies from all the cable companies saying, what? Cable's doing great. Everyone loves cable. Hey, we're not going anywhere. Sure. Like blatantly flying in the face of the hard facts right in front of them. But they had to say that. They had to make that play until they had a strategy in place to where all of a sudden they're able to pivot, and all of a sudden they're a broadband company that does content over the top. This is feeling like the same thing. Whatever their BS excuses are, I feel like they're saying because they feel like they need to say something, when really it's just, hey, man, we're playing Monopoly. We're trying to gobble up all the properties now while they're available. Yeah. And unfortunately, that means making things inconvenient for you, the consumer, until we get to that point.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird contrast between Amazon and Apple in those regards, right? Only now is Apple trying to get into content ownership, where Amazon's been in it for a long time, and Amazon has a lot of hardware SKUs, but they're still very specific, right? Now they are losing YouTube, and the interplay on their software side for Amazon is not always super tight. Not being able to buy stuff on the iOS and tvOS apps.
Right.
It's kind of a weird inverse of each other in that they're at such a strong point in different categories.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is if you're imagining the Street Fighter II version of this battle, the players are balanced, but they're also asymmetrical.
They're also crazy.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that Amazon needs a Hadouken, and then iOS needs a Sonic Boom.
Yeah.
All right, so let's check in on what to watch.
In Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location. Under surveillance.
All right, talk us through all this, Bryce. Why don't you take the cons, sir?
Okay. We talked a little bit about this last week, and it might have been the same status, but now all 6 episodes of Black Mirror Season 4 have a trailer. There's also a season trailer for the new Season 4 and a release date. So happy ringing in the new year on December 29th with your friends and family for Black Mirror Season 4.
So this is, I think, a really 21st century take on the idea of doing trailers. It used to be that you would advertise an entire season of Black Mirror, an anthology series that's going to be all over the map thematically and have different tales.
Hard to make a trailer for that because you have clips from very disparate content.
Right, bunch of very, very different narratives. And so previously they had done a bunch of trailers that were more mood-driven, that were just generally spooky and conveyed this kind of Twilight Zone vibe. But now we live in a world where blogs are desperate for stories, and they want to be featuring these individual contents. And you never know, one of these 6 individual stories might resonate and hit the front page of Reddit and be the favorite thing that everyone's most excited about. So why not pay a couple of editors 2 extra days salary in order to make 6 different trailers, and they're all fine trailers. I'm not going to say any one of these really knocked my socks off, but I definitely already have a favorite out of them. The Star Trek looking one that appears to be maybe some kind of reference to like an MMO type thing totally has me intrigued. And I don't think I would have gotten the depth out of that had they not split it up into 6 individual trailers, one for each episode.
Yeah, I know when we looked at it last week, like TechCrunch had made a post for each one because each one came out so far between each other.
Yep.
And it just creates this little background noise of, oh yeah, Black Mirror's coming back. When's Black Mirror coming back? And now that we're 2 or 3 weeks away from it, now we know it's going to be the 29th.
Mulango, you're all caught up on all these, right?
Yeah, I'm caught up with Black Mirror. And as a fan of Black Mirror, I mean, I think this is a really cool idea because, like you said, you already have a favorite. And this just opens the door for somebody to pick out. Like, oh, I want to get into Black Mirror because I think that episode's going to be freaking amazing.
And I'll tell you what else. In a sharing society, sharing of media, not in money. In a sharing society, you probably do want to be able to allow people to be like, watch this episode of Black Mirror to send to someone that you know would be a match for.
And then, once you're in, you will go and watch all the other ones, right?
Yep.
I think it's interesting that I wonder if it was elements of production or whatever, but originally last season was like supposed to be 3A, and this is supposed to be 3B or 3 Part 2, and now it's just being considered full season 4, which I think is an interesting bend on it.
I mean,
I wonder if that means Netflix couldn't quite get as many as fast from either Charlie Brooker or all the different production teams.
I also wonder if, and I'd hate to ascribe such nefarious intentions, but it seems to me like that's not a bad strategy, is if you know you don't have a full season, call this the first half of a season, wait 6 months, know that everybody's already forgotten their disappointment from not getting a full season, and called a new thing, a new full season.
And don't reference
4.
it because it's a British show. Like, you should be happy you're getting 6.
Correct. You're like, hey man, British series, they're 3 episodes long. You'd be thankful you're getting 6.
No, that's very true. I don't even remember when the last Black Mirror came out.
It was early 2015, I want to say.
No.
Oh my god.
Or
It wasn't already a
early
year ago.
2016, I think. It was a while. It's been a while.
Has it been a full year? I want to say it was around September of last year.
Well, we have the internet to look this up. 2016, October 2016.
Yeah.
So
Nailed it.
a little
That's
bit over
almost
a year.
got it.
Yeah. We've also got a new trailer for Altered Carbon. I think this was our opening video last week, or rather the initial teaser was. This is the story about you being able to transfer your consciousness into new bodies, aka sleeves. And it seems to follow a very wealthy man who dies after 300 or so years of life and hires a detective to figure out who killed him.
If I remember correctly, I was talking about, it reminds me of themes from Peter F. Hamilton's amazing stories, starting with Pandora's Star, where there's a whole thread about the psychological damage of suffering what they call body loss and coming to terms with the fact that, no, it's still you, just a backup of you, missing the last parts in another cloned body, but it's still you. You got this, bro.
Did you see this trailer, Mulango?
Yeah, no, I've seen the trailer, and I was thinking it reminded me of, and I hope I'm getting it right, Ryan Reynolds, I feel like, played in a movie that was very similar to this, where it was an old guy who basically wanted to rebirth, so they captured I think it was Ryan Reynolds. They took his body, they put him in an induced coma, and then they basically injected the mind into that.
You know what? Whether it's truly existing or not, let's say it does. And
people are saying Selfless.
Selfless. Yes,
Okay.
that's what it was. Yeah, people are saying that was a good one.
And I know when we talked about this last week, Tom had read the book that Altered Carbon is based on.
Oh, okay.
And he seemed to have high praise for that. So thank you for
the movie wasn't bad. I enjoyed the movie. So it's kind of interesting that this is now we get to see. I love Netflix for this specific reason. It's like anything that you want to kind of like peel the layers back on and get a little bit more into. It's perfect for Netflix.
Yeah. And it's the sort of cyberpunk aesthetic is very true here. It feels right. I get the sense that they'll have a good atmosphere, though it also seems to be very heavy on action and blood. Also, while we're in the trailer park, Jessica Jones got a release date and a new trailer. Did you guys see the new Jessica Jones
I did
trailer?
not see the new trailer, but then again, I never finished the last couple of episodes of Jessica Jones.
Wait, you didn't?
Oh.
I read far. I got far enough to where they started treading water.
So the tough thing about Jessica Jones, right, is that pretty early on it gets into the whole David Tennant
Yep.
story, right? And it from this trailer, it seems that she's getting back into more detective-y sort of work and trying to find out about her backstory and how she got her powers and the big company that I guess gave her superpowers or whatever the backlore is. I'm not a comic book guy, as you can tell. But it looks cool.
I will say that Jessica Jones, despite the spotty execution on the first season, there were episodes I liked a lot and some I really didn't care for.
Yeah.
But the character herself, the actress, is amazing. I guess actor would be the more gender neutral term. But the actor is amazing, and there's parts to this story that I really really like.
Yeah, and I'm psyched to get back into like an investigative bent.
Yeah.
Because I think they set up that really well in the beginning of the first season, and then it turns into this different sort of story, and that's fine. That suits that story, but I want to see what Detective Jessica Jones is doing and investigating. So
Yeah. You want to see her doing external detective work as instead of internal introspection.
Yeah,
Although I guess you're going to get plenty of that in here too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, it lent itself so well in that first season. I mean, Brian, you really should finish it. It ends with kind of like oh my gosh, I can't believe that's how that's going to happen. But it ends well. Like
Yeah.
I'm excited for what they're going to do. And of the four of the Netflix Marvel cinematic things, Jessica Jones is like number 2 on there for me.
Yeah, right under Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's March 8 is when that second season of Jessica Jones.
Awesome.
We also got a little bit of other what to watch news. Starting in January, NFL games will be available on mobile through apps from the NFL, Yahoo Sports, and Verizon's Go90 apps, no matter which carrier you have. Previously, mobile streaming was exclusive to Verizon mobile customers.
I have to wonder what happened behind the scenes, because that seems like a real coup for Verizon to say we're the only place to watch mobile on the NFL, and then for that deal to stop and for this to be what's happening instead. I'd be real curious, and of course I have no way of knowing, but
It must have just been stupid expensive, right? I mean, that's why
Yeah.
Amazon and Twitter are only buying individual games, right? Like,
Mulango, you're a sports fan, right? Do you ever watch on your phone?
Yeah. No, I'm a sports fan, but no, I always watch it on a big screen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can only assume that this is an advantage for people that travel a lot and are also huge with sports. That makes sense for this.
But even if you travel, it seems like every time I'm in an airport, every bar
Yeah.
I'm at, they got the game
on.
playing. It seems like if you want to see the game, that's where you go, right?
yeah.
Well, but the thing is, like, even when I lived in Jersey for a little bit, it was very hard to get Pittsburgh games unless I was part of the DirecTV package for. So this might be something where, even if it is just on my mobile device, I can see my team versus whatever local area I'm stuck in.
Yeah. This Verge article about this also points out that DirecTV has exclusivity on out-of-market games. So if you're watching on TV, it can make it tough if you're not on DirecTV, which is where mobile streaming would come in as a benefit, potentially. Yeah. A couple more stories. Lauren Schmidt Histrich, I believe I'm saying that right, the writer and producer of Daredevil and The Defenders, is now the showrunner for Netflix's upcoming The Witcher. The series is based on the books, not the video games, though the video games are also based on the books, but the author doesn't like how they adapted the books into the video games, so now he's sold it to Netflix to do another adaptation.
Well, and also don't forget that there also is a Witcher television show that is in Poland,
right.
also based on the book.
Huh.
There's a lot of Witchers that the author's not happy with.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this will be the one that unites everybody.
Well, that I was editorializing about half of that headline.
Yeah.
But you've got a lot of the talent behind Defenders and Daredevil. maybe.
Oh, I'm cautiously optimistic. It sounds like it's a fantastic world. Whether or not you're a video game fan, I know that people really enjoy vast aspects of the Witcher universe from the video game, and hopefully that translates to the medium-sized screen.
Yeah. Finally, the first look at the Sense8 finale special is out with some behind-the-scenes clips. The finale is expected to come out next year. I'm really glad. I never watched Sense8, or I maybe watched a little bit of it, but I'm especially watching this behind-the-scenes clip. I'm glad that this show, which was sort of canceled, not last minute, but sort of unexpectedly or without resolve, is getting at least one more go at it. You see them going through all these different locations throughout the world, and all the fans that show up at all the different shoots. This is a pretty good feel-good story to what could have otherwise been, any other normal network cancellation gone on deaf ears.
Mulango, did you watch the first episode or the first season of Sense8?
No, I think I literally got through maybe like the first 10 minutes of the first episode, and I was kind of like, It was
very leisurely. It was very character focused, and there were brief moments of action that I felt the potential of where it could head, but ended up falling off before. I never watched any of season 2. I watched almost all of season 1.
Oh yeah.
But I know this much. I know that there's nothing I hate more than getting involved in a series and having it killed off before its perceived proper end time. And so the mere fact that there's any kind of closure, I think, is a good thing.
And this is a first for Netflix of canceling a show that has had such a loud outcry. And I think Netflix knows that Sense8 is more valuable to them finished than it is not.
Yes. No, that's a really good point. And also that's a good way, however much this costs, let's say it costs $5 million to make this last special or whatever, it's probably worth it to do it, to put a button on it, to make all of those rabid diehard fans happy, and also
always
keep
be able to promote Sense8.
Correct, but also keep open the possibility of, who knows, maybe another special in the world. It's like, no, there's no reason to be mad at us, Netflix. Right. You love Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see more stuff like this, either very explicit, final season stuff, or season or series cappers, as these, Amazon and Netflix and Apple and whoever else gets into the original programming game and knows that these shows are way more valuable to them in the long run finished.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, especially if your specialty is offering library content, then you're better off with each volume in your library being finished. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because it's not like a TV. Compare it to being on TV, right? It's expensive to make it for TV. It's expensive to airtime, ad sales, all the overhead and stuff.
Right.
And so if it just doesn't make sense to finish it, it doesn't make sense. They don't have to show it anymore.
Right.
But now that content is so much more available, that finished story, that resolved story is always going to be something that Netflix has in their ever-growing, bookshelf.
Speaking of which,
but to play devil's advocate though, because if Netflix is realizing this with Sense8, then what happened with the Get Down? I mean, they went 2 seasons in. It got extremely expensive. They could have wrapped it up with a mini series. Or
man, Get Down was a weird one though. That was all over the map in terms of you could see that scene is whoa, that's a very expensive looking scene, and then 5 minutes later that's definitely a green screen and some bad Photoshop.
But then what was it? Hemlock Grove, a small horror series,
right?
Ended up with I think it was a final season, a definitive final season. It got its chance.
That's the Eli Roth one, right? With the werewolves?
With the werewolves and the vampires and stuff. And that, granted, that's probably a much cheaper show with maybe Netflix just saw, hey, not many people are watching The Get Down versus Sense8.
Yeah. Well, speaking of what we're watching, what are we watching, Mulango?
So I had a discussion with a coworker about the Orville, in which I said, I was like, I can't watch that show. It's not funny. I thought it would be funny. And he was like, nah, just go back and watch it. And I've gone through basically the whole first season. I'm almost caught up. So there's something odd where I guess when I'm at work and the work that I do, that I can just listen to it or watch it in the background, and it's kind of soothing in a way.
From what I've heard and what we've discussed on the show, it sounds like a little bit of a brilliant bait and switch where it was marketed as a comedy, but secretly it's like, did you guys like Star Trek The Next Generation? Great, we're doing more of that, only we're not calling it that.
Yeah, definitely. And then the other show that I don't know how I lost track of this, but Broadchurch, seasons 2 and 3 are on Netflix, and it wrapped up, or it's not that it wrapped up. It didn't get a 4th season. It got canceled. So I wrapped it up in the weekend, and it's such an amazing show. But anyway, that's what I'm watching.
What is the plot of Broadchurch? Because I keep thinking of Torchwood instead.
It's just it's a crime drama, but it's one of the doctors. I can't remember what his name is, but one of the it's a British show.
It's not David Tennant, is it?
No.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, okay.
It's it is David Tennant.
Aha, nailed it.
Detective
okay.
Inspector Alec Hardy.
But they did an American version, an American adaptation of season 1, which was also equally as good. But he also played in the American adaptation of it as well, which is weird. But
is he doing the American accent too?
Yeah, he uses an American accent.
Wow. Meanwhile, Tom brags that he watched The Crown, Jumanji, Ferdinand, The Greatest Showman, all these movies that ain't come out yet.
Oh, he got to see Ferdinand?
Yeah. No, look, he's ruined it. He's ruined everything. He sees everything before us.
Big movie man now.
Now, spoiler in time is. Oh yeah, I saw that too. I forgot to mention.
Well, what about you, bro?
Man, not a lot. I've been super busy. I went up to New York to work on a TV project and then flew out to Las Vegas. But along the way, I was able to watch the latest episode in our back catalog of Deadwood, which we'll talk about next week. Spoiler alert, I forgot my favorite parts of Deadwood. I forgot that like Ricky Jay shows up in the 3rd episode, and I remember my favorite aspect of the show. So that's exciting. We'll talk about that later.
We'll also talk about Mr. Robot and Spoiler in Time tonight.
Yes, although you will be spoiling it for me since I didn't get to finish it. And I watched Disaster Artist last night. Loved it. It was great. We'll talk about it in Spoiler Time.
Interesting.
Oh, you did not. Oh,
well, we'll have to listen to this.
Foreshadowing.
We got something here on the lookout. George sent along a recommendation. He writes, "Hi, I got news from this very recent article. It's actually not recent as of this recording. Item on Ars Technica about a show called Fortitude. I'm a big fan of Cordkillers, and especially the On the Lookout segment. I've gotten a lot of great suggestions from Bryce and the folks sending in tips. Keep the good work, George. I did not get a chance to watch Fortitude, but the Ars Technica article that George links to goes into the 2 seasons that are available pretty well in depth. They write, quote, Fortitude is set in the small fictional Norway-governed Arctic research fishing town of the same name. A shady resident of Fortitude discovers an ancient mammoth corpse, and he thinks he'll strike it rich by selling its remains, but instead becomes a victim of a mysterious wave of deaths. Townspeople disagree about what's going on. Newer residents wonder if a psychopath is responsible, while others accuse a little boy of having inhuman strength. Members of the town's native population believe an ancient evil has been awoken. Now, without getting into any of the spoilers, there's the Ars article goes to argue that while the science behind the show is weird, it's also very plausible, just in terms of organism and the spread of disease and weird concoctions and stuff.
So I guess similar to how The Expanse goes out of their way to make orbital entry vectors accurate and possible and plausible for getting from place to place.
Right. It seems like this has a little bit of that like realism element to it, which I think, given the little bit that I read, that seems spoilery, all the more scarier. By the way, the end of this write-up on Ars Technica from Jennifer Hahn, says, Fortitude isn't a show for the faint of heart. Prepare for murder, suicides, human sacrifices, and even self-mutilation. Has the town been overrun by an ancient evil, just a parasitic effect, or a cure for death? Check it out. So there are 2 seasons streaming right now on Amazon Prime in the US. In the UK and parts of Europe, you can watch it on Sky Go or Now TV. but this is not necessarily a global release, which is pretty unfortunate.
And, of course, if you have something we should be on the lookout for, hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com. Make sure to put in the subject heading "On the Lookout."
That's right.
And this is the portion of the show where both Tom and I, when Tom bothers to show up because he's not busy watching movies, talk about the fact that we support ourselves not only from your fantastic donations, but also because we have projects on the side. But I don't want to plug one of my projects. I want to plug somebody else's project.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, Bryce's project. Bryce edited together this fantastic 25-minute interview with a friend of mine, Nate Staniforth, who is a magician who has a new memoir. He's in the tender age of, I think, 33, 34, and has a memoir about his time, about becoming a successful touring magician, becoming disillusioned, and in an effort to rekindle his love affair with the art that rules his life, he drops everything and goes to India, where he goes in search of what he calls real magic. And the story is inspiring. It's wonderful. Please pre-order the book. It comes out next month. If you're interested, take a look at the go to Scam School and type in Nate Staniforth, Here is Real Magic.
Yeah, it's one of the most recent videos. YouTube.com/scamschool.
Yeah.
Get there. Yeah, and if you watch the video, you'll get to find out how you can benefit from pre-ordering the book.
Yeah, he's got a special project that he's doing for people who bother to pre-order the book. But the book itself is its own reward.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out.
Nice.
All right, let's go on to the front line.
Nominations for the Golden Globes were announced Monday morning. Netflix received 9 TV nominations, including The Crown, Stranger Things, Master of None, Ozark, 13 Reasons Why, and Glow. Amazon got 2 nominations for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and one for I Love Dick. Hulu got 3 nominations for The Handmaid's Tale. HBO got 12 nominations for Big Little Lies, The Wizard of Lies, Game of Thrones, and The Young Pope, a.k.a. Lies. No, I'm sorry. They all have lies in the title.
The Young Lies Pope.
Yes, The Young Lies.
Pious Lies.
Man, we're to the point now where it's like it sounds almost more extraordinary for broadcast network television to have the Emmy nods instead of all these non-traditional sources.
And this article makes a good point that it did. The streaming services got more than broadcast TV, which only got 8 combined. 5 for NBC and 3 for ABC.
That is amazing.
Versus 15 between the big 3. Like,
makes me actually want to go check out Hulu.
Yeah, I swear, Hulu. I keep getting the feeling that Hulu has righted the course, and that between The Path being really good, Handmaid's Tale getting a lot of critical acclaim, that like their next thing really has a lot of heat, and if it's good, it'll be knocked out of the
Total
park.
snub on Future Man, though. They got robbed.
It's
Future
too
Man,
early.
best drama.
Maybe it's too early. FX and Sony Pictures Television will turn the podcast Welcome to Night Vale into a TV show. Better Call Saul executive producer Jennifer Hutchison will adapt the story with the help of podcast co-creators Jeffrey Craner and Joseph Fink.
This is huge. Malengo, have you listened to Welcome to Night Vale?
No, I haven't.
The folks who love it, capital Love it. And I enjoyed the 4 or 5 episodes I listened to, and I could totally see why this is a great catch. It's got a mood and a tenor and a story that we've not seen anywhere else. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of different ways. Just like Preacher isn't Preacher the comic book, but it's
Preacher the show.
But it is Preacher, right? Yeah. I feel like they could do the same thing for Night Vale.
And Night Vale's been adapted already. It's already had at least one book come out that was this sort of side story. Not to mention you have all of these many years of episodes to go off of.
Sure,
it seems like a slam dunk. So that's great.
Cool.
Agreed. MGM has finished production on the Stargate Origins, a series released. They released a behind-the-scenes featurette. The series is a prequel to the movie and television shows, so it's before any of that stuff. Following Catherine Langford, daughter of the person who discovered the Stargate, and seems to be set in a pre-World War II Egypt. The series is set to arrive on the Stargate Command streaming service in early 2018. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but there's a Stargate Command streaming service. Yeah. That's a real thing.
It's, I believe it's $20, a one-time $20 fee.
And you just go nuts.
And you get all of the Stargate stuff, including this series.
That's a smart way to do it. Like if because imagine summer vacation, you got lots of free time. You knew that you liked a thing. You pay $20, get the whole thing. Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
The Hollywood Reporter says that the movie Annihilation will be distributed by Paramount in the United States, Canada, and China only, and then handled by Netflix everywhere else. That would apparently mean hitting Netflix 17 days after the theatrical debut in February. The odd decision seems to be driven by a dispute between the producers. David Ellison allegedly thinks the movie is too complicated and intellectual, but Scott Rudin has final cut and likes it as it is. Annihilation stars Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson, Gina Rodriguez, and is based off the book by Jeff Vandermeer.
Man, I know nothing about this.
So I read this article on IO9, and it seems like a very classic Hollywood story of like, make it more accessible. We think it's too intellectual, and the person with the final cut saying, no, I think it's great as is.
Which, by the way, last time we heard this was about the Wonder Woman cut. We had heard some behind-the-scenes buzz that there was a lot of fussing about, like, no, you're taking too long on this. There's too heavy-handed on this stuff. And it turns out director was right and everyone else was wrong. Yeah. And it's the best DC movie we've seen in a long time.
This is a sci-fi science fiction movie, which you would think has a lot of leeway for intellectual, cerebral, heady sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, February. Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah.
The wild wastes of releasing a movie.
February, the land of blockbusters. Bloomberg reports that Netflix plans a choose-your-own-path show for adults. Netflix introduced a kids show called Bootstrapped in an Epic Tale, which allowed iOS and TV viewers to make choices that affected how the story was told. I know my kids have gone through this a couple of times. I don't know. I don't care for the anxiety of having a responsibility of deciding. I don't want to pick a wrong way.
I think most of the time I wouldn't. But if it was the right idea, if it was the right concept for a show, and it was something I sat down to watch, you could get me to click the button and make a decision. But it's got to be the right show.
Yeah, Mulango, what do you say?
Yeah. No, I agree with Bryce. It has to be the right show. I mean, I'm playing with this right now with augmented reality and some games that we're working on. And I feel like adapted to television or a TV show, it could be cool. I also agree with you, Brian, that it would be very stressful if you picked the wrong thing.
Which, by the way,
but you can just rewatch it.
In my mind, it's okay if it's stressful when it's a video game. Like if I want that level of responsibility, I'll play L.A. Noire or something. You know,
sure.
I don't make me play Hearthstone and make decisions about how to. I don't want to direct your movie. You direct your movie.
You already have your hand on your mouse, Brian.
Well, that's true.
Also, the Engadget report also goes to mention on that HBO has a very similar app right now for Steven Soderbergh's Mosaic series, where it's kind of a chopped up story and you can choose how you want to watch it. I haven't used that yet, but that might be an interest, and that would be an interesting first look at how you could do something like this.
Yeah.
And finally, AT&T has announced that DirecTV Now has surpassed 1 million subscribers.
Huzzah!
This puts it on pace to catch Dish's Sling TV service, which has 1.7 million. DirecTV Now plans to add DVR and live TV pausing, plus 4K HDR, individual profiles, and downloadable content all in the next year.
Might be, and I believe Tom has signed up for this as well. He said that when he first got started, it was pretty rough around the edges, but he seems pretty happy with the delivery on it these days.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds right. I think he's... I don't know.
Yeah. Welcome to making up things about cord cutting.
But it's a good sign that this is getting its own base and is holding water as a competitor, right?
Sure.
If we have 1,000 options and none of them, take root, what good is any of them?
Well, and I think also certainly the DirecTV name influences the success of it, because if you're my parents and they're like, we want cable, it's like, well, you have fiber optic. Would you like cable without bothering to have a dish? It's like, sure. And then they type some buttons and then the licenses are all done and they're happy.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the dispatches from the front.
Oh, we got a big one here. We got one big letter and 1,000 tiny letters. The big letter begins, greetings, valued employees. It's been a year since I started my cord cutting odyssey, and I thought I'd share some thoughts about it. TLDR, a year in and loving not having to be paying any money to Comcast. Brief recap on why he had to start this journey. He says he didn't watch any TV live. It's all time shifted. There's also problems with Comcast changing the MPEG stream, so it was incompatible with the HD TiVo that he had. It's now been a year with PlayStation Vue, and so far, I should really see whether this is male or female. Todd. It's been a year with PlayStation Vue, and Todd likes the service, gives it high marks overall. With an OTA antenna for local channels and mainly PBS and the occasional network show, his HD TiVo is still chugging along nicely. Sony just raised the fee from $239 from $29. But even at that, he still has all the channels that he and his wife wants. She gets all her news crap, and I get BBC America, USA Network, Sci-Fi.
All right.
Only complaint he has about PlayStation Vue is nothing to do with the service. It's the Apple TV. He hates the remote. Constantly pick up the remote backwards or hit the TV button instead. I've been there.
Yep.
Remote rant aside, he says he's like me and just wants a single box for everything. I'm lazy that way. Hey, so am I. Now that Amazon has finally released their app for Apple TV, I can now use the one box to view all my online content. Lots of other details. We love hearing about your stories when it comes to cutting the cord. Make sure to write us at cordkillers@gmail.com.
Can I share a little PlayStation Vue story from this
Yeah.
past week for me?
Yeah.
So...
As long as it's good, because you know I love my PlayStation Vue.
So, spoiler alert, I have been cribbing your PlayStation Vue a little bit to watch Mr. Robot.
Oh, right on. That's why my recommendations are all so strange.
It's a lot of kids' shows. I don't think I'm doing all the damage there. So I went to go watch this week's episode of Mr. Robot on PlayStation Vue. It's normally been fine. I pull up the DVR. I got to skip through commercials, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to go today, and all of the DVR episodes had been blocked. It had said USA has restricted this content, whatever, from web viewing, which either means they're just saying no more DVR or what. But I've been using this very solidly for the past 8 weeks.
Yeah,
and it's just been completely blocked out, and that's a really big bummer, because the idea of like, hey, we're always going to record the shows that you've picked, so you'll have a bunch of stuff on hand all the time. Is antithetical to the idea of like, hey, they're going to be able to say when you can turn the DVR that you already had access to off. That seems like a really, I don't know, maybe there's some weird thing. But
man, it really undercuts the righteous argument when it begins with, I've been stealing your PlayStation Vue.
This is why you should be upset. I don't have your Amazon password. I couldn't get into the Mr. Robot.
I'll just give you my Amazon password.
I think you changed it recently. So that's my PlayStation Vue story. We do have another email here, or do you want to talk about this one?
Let's do the other long one, and then we'll talk about that.
We got an email from Jesse. We'll just say that Jesse is a fake name. Greetings, Cordkillers crew. My house has been 100% cord cutting since 2012, but it wasn't until this year that we ran into an issue of continuously exceeding our 1 terabyte data cap with Xfinity. Boo. The culprit in my mind is our transition to streaming HD content pretty much all day, every day, as background noise for our twin toddlers, which typically ends up being a small number of Disney, Pixar, and DreamWorks movies on repeat. The Shrek and Cars movies are all the rage right now. I could add additional streaming for $50 extra a month, but I don't think it makes any sense to pay the extra $600 a year. Whew. We mainly stream from our Apple TV, and I wanted a solution that doesn't deviate from this routine, such as purchasing a Mac Mini and playing local content. I dabbled with iTunes home sharing before, and deemed it our best option, so I downloaded the movies on iTunes to our iMac, but we ran into a snag when they wouldn't play on the Apple TV. I spoke with an Apple support rep, and even though I'm still using Apple products and services, home sharing won't stream downloaded iTunes movies because it wants the user to stream the content from the movies app. The same rep also suggested using Plex and VLC on Apple TV. This is an Apple support rep, by the way, suggesting this, which I attempted but didn't work because the iTunes files have DRM. The only recourse was to purchase a tool to convert and strip the DRM, which made it possible to use home sharing to hopefully ease our data caps and burdens. All this makes me concerned about my eventual transition to 4K. My speed and bandwidth should be able to handle streaming 4K content, but unless data caps are lifted, I'm willing to shell out an extra $50 per month. I may hold off on 4K for a lot longer than I would otherwise.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute since I've had this problem, but previous to having the gigabit and just deciding everything could stream always, I used to be big on keeping local copies of stuff, and I used the Play On service, which plays nicely. Basically, you have your local copy, whether it's backed up from a DVD or legally purchased and downloaded or whatever, and it sits on your desktop PC, and it's able to stream happily over to your Xbox or to your iOS device.
So it's all local streaming.
Correct.
Right.
And then that way...
Very similar to Plex.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So that's another alternative for that.
Yeah. But a bummer about the data caps, I think we're going to, it's
got to be going away, right? I mean,
you hope so, but then, hey, we'll see what happens Thursday.
Yeah.
Oofa-doofa. All right. Last bit?
Yeah. Hey, Mulango, have you heard that Patreon's made some changes? Did you hear about this?
I didn't hear about that. Tell me about those changes.
We got out of all the emails, those were the only two emails that were not about, I don't like what Patreon's doing, or I understand what Patreon's doing. If you haven't heard, Patreon, in order to deal with the phenomenon of people signing up, accessing a whole bunch of back catalog of exclusive patron-only content and then deleting their account, paying virtually nothing, they made it to where basically the moment you pledge, you get charged for every time a new thing comes out. The downside is when you have a project like ours, which is weekly, you make a pledge per thing created, those fees add up, and there's a lot of people who are really, really sore about it. And I guess Tom's not here, and we haven't really discussed it, but I think if I was going to guess, and this is pure speculation on my part, what we'll probably do is create a non-Patreon way to donate, if that would be your preference. But I think by and large, a lot of people seem okay with Patreon, or enough of them do, that we certainly don't want to shut down our current revenue factory to keep us going.
Tom not being here makes this a tough time for us.
Welcome to the new show, Wild Speculation with BB&M.
But it's kind of a boner the way that they're doing this fee stuff, but we don't exactly know. We have to see how it shakes out, because it won't start for another week, and we don't know if they'll capitulate and change their mind or modify it in that time.
We'll certainly keep tabs on it. And meanwhile, if you're anything like me, in that you have pledged to certain Patreons and just thought, I'm never thinking about it again, this person gets $5 per thing forever, and I'm never going to worry about it, then let me just say thank you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
And if anything happens, we'll mention on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep you posted.
Speaking of keeping us posted, Mulango, where can people get posted about you?
I would say just follow me on Twitter, although I have not been doing well at keeping up with Twitter, but with all the projects that I have coming up next year, I would say that's probably the best place right now to do that.
Is there anything you can tease for us specifically?
Well, I can tease all. I'm working on we're working on a couple AR projects, augmented reality, that are featuring story-based games. So hopefully we'll have some of that stuff ready to roll around, hopefully by spring. And so that'll be really cool.
Twitter is Mulango AE, right?
Yep.
Okay. Wasn't it Rambling Mango at some point?
Yeah, it was. And then I figured somebody was like, you should just make it your name. And I was like, sure, why not?
Well, that's a crazy idea. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mulango. Meanwhile, our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll kill your cords later. Hey, guys. Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
let's go.
It's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.